My name is Ranger Hayes. I've been a 911 dispatcher in Ravenswood, West Virginia for more than 15 years. Most people never dial 911 at all. If they do, it's usually once, maybe twice in their lifetime. I've answered thousands of calls. Some were routine, some heartbreaking, and some I'll never forget. But the calls that changed me, the ones that still wake me up at night, are the ones that called me by name, the ones that shouldn't have known who I was. In this job, you're trained to separate yourself from what you hear, to stay calm, collected, professional, no matter what's happening on the other end of the line. But no training prepares you for the first time a voice you don't know says your name, in a tone that feels like it's sitting right beside you. The first time it happened, I thought maybe it was a cruel prank, but it kept happening. And each time, the voices grew clearer, more familiar, more impossible. The very first one was in the middle of an uneventful night shift. The phones had been quiet for hours. Then at 1:17 in the morning, a call came through. A man's voice, low and broken, whispering into the receiver. At first, I thought it was a bad connection. Static, shuffling, something like wind. Then, just as I was about to repeat my greeting, he said it. My name. Clear as day. Ranger, not dispatcher, not operator. My name. I froze. I asked for his location, for what kind of emergency he had, but he didn't answer. Instead, I heard the sound of labored breathing, and then the words, "I know you." That's all. Then silence. Protocol meant I had to trace the call. The address came up as a residence 30 miles outside of town. We sent deputies, expecting to find some drunk kid playing with the phone. But when they arrived, the house was empty. No furniture, no signs of life, just dust, and a disconnected landline sitting on the floor like it had been abandoned for years. I tried to let it go. Dispatchers hear strange things all the time. But a week later, another call came in. This time, a little girl. She was crying, her voice trembling so badly I could barely understand her. She said her mother was hurt. I asked for her name, but she just whispered, "Mommy sent you." I asked where she was, and all I heard was static. Then, a man's voice cut in. This time, louder, stronger, and he said it again. "Ranger." My stomach dropped. This wasn't possible. The caller ID said the line came from an address across the river. Deputies got there in minutes, but the house was dark. Windows boarded, no sign of a child, no sign of anyone at all. Yet when they searched the basement, they swore they heard faint voices echoing through the walls. After that night, the calls came more often. Sometimes once a week, sometimes multiple times in one shift. A man breathing into the receiver. Even my own voice once, distorted and slow, calling me from an unknown number. Each time, the line would go dead before help could arrive. Each time, I filed the report. Each time, the addresses never lined up with anything living. Just ruins, empty fields, long abandoned buildings. I thought maybe I was losing my mind. Until one night, when the call came from inside the station. It was logged on the board like any other call. But when I traced it, the location showed our own dispatch center. At first, I thought it had to be a glitch. But then the voice came on. Low, deliberate. It wasn't a stranger this time. It was me, my own voice. "Ranger," it said, "you forgot the address." Then it hung up. I sat there, staring at the line, unable to breathe. I can't explain what's happening. None of us can. Other dispatchers have heard pieces, background noise maybe, or the faint sound of someone saying my name on a call that wasn't even mine. But the full voices, the whispers, the ones that sound like me, I'm the only one who gets them. Most people think 911 is a lifeline, a voice in the dark that brings help when you need it most. For me, it's become something else. Every time the phone rings, I wonder if it's another real emergency. or if it's one of them, waiting, testing, getting closer. And if you think this is just another story, another tale to spook you for the night, remember this. The next time you pick up your phone and dial those 3 numbers, ask yourself if you're the one calling for help, or if something else is calling you. If you want to hear what happened next, if you want to follow this trail the same way I've had to live through it, make sure you subscribe to MindFuel. Every chapter brings me closer to the truth, and I promise, you don't want to miss what comes after this, because the next voice you hear might be your own. It was 2 nights after the little girl's call when the first real crack in my nerves showed. I was working the graveyard shift, the room lit only by the dull glow of monitors. At 2:14 a.m., a line lit up. Routine. I pressed my headset and gave the standard greeting. 911, what's your emergency? No answer. Just breathing. Long, uneven breaths, like the caller was pressed up too close to the receiver. I repeated the question. Still nothing. Just that breathing, wet, strained, almost as though the person was forcing every inhale. I asked again. Sir or ma'am, if you can't speak, press something, make a noise. Are you in danger? For a moment, silence. Then the whisper came. Faint, low, but sharp enough that it felt like it was cutting into my ear. You shouldn't have picked up. That was it. No scream, no plea, no address, just those words. Then the line went dead. I sat frozen, listening to the empty dial tone. The protocol was clear. I logged it, tagged the timestamp, and ran the trace. Except, there was no trace. Nothing. The system showed no incoming call at that hour. My own screen still had the line logged, still showed the number in bright red. But when I checked with the on-duty supervisor, nothing. Their system showed silence. No activity between 2 and 3 a.m. I tried to shake it off, told myself it was fatigue, a glitch. Maybe I'd misheard static. But here's where it gets worse. During shift change, I told one of my coworkers about it. He gave me this look, half confused, half uneasy, and then told me something I didn't want to hear. He'd been sitting across from me the whole night. He swore no line ever lit up. No sound came through. He said he'd been watching my desk during the downtime, and for the entire hour I claimed I was on that call. He said my headset was unplugged. So, if that's true, then I have no explanation. I heard breathing. I heard a whisper. I traced a call. And yet officially, it never happened. That's when I realized this wasn't just about prank callers, or static, or ghosts in the machine. Someone, or something, was making sure that the calls were meant only for me. And if you're still listening, if you're still watching, don't forget, this is just the first one. Subscribe to MindFuel and come back, because I haven't even told you the worst of it yet. The next call came 3 nights later, just after 6 a.m., when the sky outside was still more shadow than dawn. Our shift was nearly over, and I was counting the minutes when the line lit up. The voice on the other end was a boy, maybe 7, maybe 8 years old. His words tumbled over each other, high-pitched and breaking with panic. I'm lost. Please help me. I'm in the forest. I can't find my way out. I straightened in my chair immediately, every part of me shifting into protocol. I kept my voice steady, calm. I asked him his name. I asked if he was hurt. But he didn't answer those questions. He just kept repeating, I'm lost, I'm lost, I'm lost. So I pulled up GPS. At first, the location pin didn't make sense. It dropped directly in the center of Ravenswood's restricted wildlife area. That forest is closed off, dense and unforgiving. Miles of old growth where even hunters avoid going. I confirmed with him again. You're in the woods? You're alone? His breathing was frantic. the sound of twigs snapping under his shoes carrying through the line. Deputies were dispatched immediately, and I stayed on with him, trying to guide him, asking him to look for a road, a landmark, anything. That's when he said something that nearly made me drop the headset. In this soft, almost casual whisper, the boy said, "You sound just like you did last time." I froze. Last time. I had never spoken to this child before. I told him, firmly, that we'd never talked, that this was the first time, but his answer was chilling. "No, you already tried to help me. You couldn't find me then either." Before I could respond, the line cut to static. Just like that, gone. Deputies reached the coordinates 30 minutes later. They searched the undergrowth, the brush, the trees. No sign of the boy, no clothing, no voice, nothing. But what they did find has haunted me since. A small set of footprints circling one of the larger oaks, round and round in the dirt, looping endlessly, as though the boy had been walking in circles for hours. And then, abruptly, the tracks stopped. No trail leading away, just an end, as though the child had simply disappeared into thin air. When the deputies reported back, I asked them if they were sure, if they were absolutely certain no one was out there. The reply came back flat, uneasy. "We saw the prints, Ranger, but there was no kid." And yet, in my ear, I can still hear him. That little whisper. "You sound just like you did last time." So who was he? A lost child? A voice trapped in those woods? Or something else? Something that had been calling for me specifically, across more than just one night. By the time the third one came through, I'd stopped sleeping normally. I'd sit at my desk with a knot in my stomach, bracing every time the line lit up. Still, nothing could have prepared me for this. It was just past 10 p.m. when the call hit. A woman's voice, shaking and broken, screamed into the receiver. "Someone's in my apartment. Please, please help me." I launched straight into protocol, keeping my voice calm, instructing her to stay hidden, to keep her line open, to whisper if she had to. Her breath was frantic, hitching between sobs, and I could hear the faint creak of footsteps in the background. I just asked her if she could see the intruder when something happened I still can't explain. Another line lit up. Same number, same caller ID. I answered, expecting maybe she'd somehow dialed again, but what came through froze me solid. It was the same woman, the same words, only slightly delayed, like an echo from a tape being played back. "Someone's in my apartment. Please, please help me." Every syllable matched, every sob matched, but I was hearing it on two different lines at once. I tried to focus on one call, but both voices kept running in unison, out of step by only seconds. I was talking to one, trying to keep her calm, but I could still hear her other self on the second line, repeating the same phrases, as if they'd already been spoken. Then both lines erupted. A scream, sharp and tearing, filling my ears from two directions at once. The exact same scream, layered over itself until it didn't sound like a human voice anymore. Then silence. When officers reached her apartment, they expected to find signs of a struggle, a break-in, maybe a body. But the apartment was empty. No blood, no victim, no intruder. Just a living room stripped of normalcy. Every piece of furniture, every wall, was slashed through with long, jagged marks, like claws dragging deep into wood and fabric. And yet, the locks were intact, the windows sealed from the inside. No sign of forced entry, no way in. The woman who called was never found. No missing persons report matched her name. And the recordings, this is the part that still gnaws at me. The recordings didn't exist. I went back through the tapes myself, where I knew her screams had filled my headset. The logs played only silence. 2 lines, 2 calls, 2 voices that matched perfectly, both gone, as though neither had ever existed in the first place. I still remember her last words before the scream broke her voice in 2. Barely audible, whispered between sobs. "He's already inside." And then, just like that, nothing. Every call is becoming more than a cry for help. They're echoes. It was just past 2 in the morning when the line lit up, and for once I felt relief. The voice on the other end wasn't panicked, wasn't screaming. It was steady, calm, professional. "This is Deputy Collins. I need backup at mile marker 47. His tone carried that clipped precision you learn to trust in this line of work. No tremor, no hesitation, just the certainty of a man trained to handle emergencies. I didn't question it. I logged the call, patched it through, and sent 2 units racing down the highway toward the marker. I even caught myself feeling a rare surge of control. Finally, a call that made sense. Except when the deputies arrived, there was no one there. No patrol car, no lights, no sign of Collins. Just long drag marks gouged into the dirt shoulder, cutting deep into the tree line, as if something heavy had been pulled off the road and into the woods. I radioed them back, asked them to double-check. Maybe Collins had pursued a suspect. Maybe his unit had stalled off-road. But when they searched, they found nothing. No footprints, no tire tracks, just those deep grooves vanishing into the dark. I didn't sleep that night, and when I came back in the next morning, I went straight to the sheriff's office. I asked who Collins was, what shift he worked, how long he'd been with us. The sheriff stared at me like I'd grown a second head. There was no Deputy Collins. There had never been a Deputy Collins. He pulled the roster to prove it, page after page of names, years of service. Collins wasn't there. Not now, not ever. I tried to convince myself I'd misheard. Maybe it was a prank caller who knew the lingo. Maybe I'd been so exhausted, I imagined the formality in his voice. But weeks later, when the phone rang again, every excuse I'd built collapsed. It was the same voice, the same measured tone, only this time stripped of authority. Ragged, faint, barely a whisper. "This is Deputy Collins." And then, after a pause so long I thought the line had dropped, "You left me there." My skin crawled. I could barely form words. Before I could respond, the voice changed, flattened, stretched thin, as though the sound was being pulled through miles of static. "Mile marker 47. Then the line went dead. No log, no recording, just the memory burned into me. So I asked myself, was Collins ever real? Or did I send 2 deputies to chase a ghost, while something else used my line to make sure I was listening? Whatever it was, it wanted me to believe. It wanted me to trust. And it succeeded. If you're here, you're starting to see the pattern. The voices aren't random. They're deliberate. They're pulling me deeper, one call at a time. And if you think that's where it ends, you're wrong. Subscribe to MindFuel, because the next call isn't just a voice reaching for me. It's a... By now, I'd grown used to strange calls. Used to whispers, to static, to words that didn't belong. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for the moment the voice said my name. It was around 3 in the morning, the kind of hour when the station feels more like a tomb than a workplace. Phones had been quiet, the hum of the monitors and the low buzz of the fluorescent lights the only companions. Then a line lit up. I pressed my headset, expecting another routine check-in or a wrong number. What came through wasn't routine. "You're tired, aren't you, Ranger?" My whole body went cold. Protocol shattered in my mind. Because no caller should ever know my name. My introduction doesn't include it. My reports don't share it. To a caller, I'm only ever dispatcher. But this one said it so casually, so intimately, like we were mid-conversation. I forced myself to keep my voice level, asking, "Who is this? What's your emergency?" The reply wasn't panicked. It wasn't a plea for help. It was laughter. Soft, deliberate, and far too long for comfort. Then, "I like when you answer. Don't let anyone else take my calls." My hand hovered over the button to flag a supervisor, but I couldn't move. I felt pinned in place, headset pressing into my ears. Because then the voice did something that made my stomach twist into knots. It started describing the room I was sitting in. "That little clock by your left monitor. It's slow. 3 minutes behind, isn't it? And the picture on your desk, the one turned slightly to the wall. You never look at it anymore. Why keep it there?" I glanced at the surveillance camera above me, convinced maybe one of the night staff was pulling a cruel trick. But here's the thing. The clock wasn't visible on camera. Neither was the picture. And yet this voice knew, down to the exact detail. I whispered back before I could stop myself. "What do you want from me?" The line crackled. For a long moment, there was nothing but the hiss of static. Then, in a tone so low I had to strain to catch it, the voice said, "To make sure you never stop answering." And then, silence. When I checked the call logs afterward, there was no entry. According to the system, nothing came through. No caller ID. No duration. Nothing. But I heard it. I heard someone, or something, on the other end of that line, telling me details no one else could know. And worse, they knew me. I realized then that the calls weren't random. They weren't ghosts. They weren't even accidents. They were personal, directed. It was just after midnight when the line lit up again. And the second I pressed my headset, I knew. I didn't need a trace, didn't need a log. I knew that sound. The same low, ragged breathing from the first night. Slow, uneven, dragging against the receiver like something pressing too close to the line. For a long moment, I just listened. My training told me to follow protocol, but training had stopped applying weeks ago. Finally, I broke the silence myself. I unmuted and asked the question that had been rotting inside me ever since the first whisper. "What do you want?" The breathing hitched once, like a laugh without air. Then the voice answered, calm, deliberate. "Not yet, but soon. And when I do, they'll call you first." My throat tightened. I tried to ask what that meant, who they were, but before I could form the words, another line lit up across the console. I hesitated only a second before answering, and what I heard chilled me deeper than anything before. It was one of our own officers. His voice was frantic, panicked, nothing like the calm men and women I was used to hearing on the line. "Something's at the station. Get out, Ranger. Get out now." I whipped my head around, staring at the glass doors of dispatch, half expecting someone to burst through. That's when the lights began to flicker. Once, twice, then in rapid bursts, casting the room into shards of darkness. Every monitor around me glitched, the screens filling with static and black bars, as if the whole center was seizing up. The two calls bled together in my headset, the officer yelling for me to leave, the breathing voice repeating, steady, unhurried. "They'll call you first. They'll call you first." And then the line cut. Both of them, at once. The room fell silent, save for the buzz of the failing lights. I sat there, frozen, headset pressed to my ear though nothing came through. When I checked the system afterward, the recordings for both calls were blank. No audio, no trace. just timestamps, beginning and ending at the exact same second, as though the system itself refused to capture what I'd heard. And that's where it ends, or maybe where it begins. Because if the first call returned, if that voice found its way back to me, then it isn't just a haunting. It isn't just noise bleeding through the lines. It's a promise. Not yet, but soon. And when that time comes, they won't just be calling me. They'll be calling all of us. If you want to know what happens when the line rings again, and I promise you it will, subscribe to MindFuel, because when the next call comes through, you'll want to hear it before it reaches you. I've been telling you these stories like they're still happening. Like I'm still sitting at that console, headset pressed tight, waiting for the next line to light up. But that isn't true. Not anymore. I stopped answering calls last year. I had to. I couldn't tell what was real and what wasn't. Couldn't separate the voices that belong to the living from the ones meant only for me. The department doesn't know it, but when I clock in, I don't touch the lines. I just sit here, alone. And yet, they still come. Not through the switchboard, not through the logs, only in my head. They whisper when the building is empty, when the hum of the lights is the only thing keeping me tethered. I try to ignore them, but when I sit down at this microphone, when I let the silence stretch long enough, the lines light up again. Not for anyone else, not for the world outside, just for me. That's what I've come to realize. All of this, every voice, every whisper, every scream that never made it to tape. It wasn't about the callers. It wasn't about emergencies. It was always about me. And now, I need to warn you. Because sometimes the line doesn't stop at dispatch. Sometimes it reaches further. So if your phone rings after midnight, if it buzzes in the dark with no caller ID, no reason at all, don't answer it. It isn't for you. It's for me.